6 months. A mere half-year to seize dominion over your life, to discard weakness, and to reshape destiny itself. Yet most will squander this time, trapped in the illusions of comfort and hope. Today, we reveal the ruthless strategies to bend time, circumstance, and human nature in your favor. Are you ready to wield power over yourself and the world? In the shadows of ambition, time is both ally and adversary. 6 months may seem fleeting, yet it is sufficient to dismantle habits that betray you and to construct a life of precision, influence, and control. The weak perceive change as a dream, the wise perceive it as a calculated conquest. In this discourse, we shall strip away sentiment, exposing the cold mechanics of mastery over mind, body, and circumstance. Prepare to observe yourself not as a victim, but as a sovereign in training, sculpting the self into a weapon you are ruled, and yet you do not know it. Not by kings, not by governments, not by your friends or enemies, but by the invisible chains of habit. Every morning you wake, you follow a ritual not of choice, but of repetition. The coffee, the phone, the familiar distractions, they are the governors of your life, silent, relentless, and cruel. Do you believe yourself free? Examine closely. Are you truly steering your actions, or are you merely drifting, a vessel swept by currents you cannot see? History provides the answer, if only one dares to observe. Consider Caesar. Not Julius at first, but the man before the conquest, before the empire. He was disciplined, methodical, calculating. Every day, his actions reinforced power, every decision a deliberate step toward dominance. His triumphs were not born of luck. They were born of routines forged in steel. And yet, how many men today, with half that vision, squander 6 months, 6 years, a lifetime, adhering instead to the dull comforts of repetition? Habits are double-edged. They conserve energy for the mind and body, but they also imprison. One glance at your own life will reveal it. Behaviors repeated without reflection, actions performed without strategy. You wake and scroll, react to stimuli, feed your emotions while starving your ambition. The tyrant of habit thrives here. It does not announce itself. It does not scream. It whispers. And you obey. Ask yourself this: if every habit were stripped away, what would remain? Would you find clarity or chaos? Most recoil from the thought. Habits are convenient. They offer an illusion of control. But convenience is the enemy of power. Power requires sacrifice, foresight, and the audacity to break the familiar, to dismantle the ordinary structures that bind you. Look to the masters, those who have moved nations, shifted fortunes, or conquered themselves. Napoleon rose not only through brilliance, but through discipline. His days, his meals, even his sleep were calculated instruments of efficiency. Each action reinforced a greater system, each decision a step toward domination. He understood that to control others, one must first control the self. To control the self, one must master the tyrant within. The unexamined habits that sabotage ambition. Do you see the truth in this? To reform, you must first observe. Track the rituals that dictate your days. Identify the habits that lull you into complacency. The scrolls of social media, the empty chatter, the repeated excuses. Then, with the cold precision of a strategist, dismantle them. Replace them not with mere substitutes, but with actions that serve power, that reinforce mastery. A habit of reading 1 chapter daily, a habit of planning each morning as though a general marshals his troops, a habit of rigorous reflection. These are not trivial. They are weapons. But beware the subtle trap. Replacing a habit requires more than intention. The mind resists change as a city resists siege. Comfort fights with invisible armies. Doubt, fatigue, the seductive allure of the familiar. You must anticipate resistance. You must plan for sabotage from within. Will you succumb to the first whisper of weakness, or will you endure, persist, and emerge stronger, sharper, unyielding? Consider the lessons of history. Nero, indulgent, enslaved to vice, destroyed himself through repeated surrender to comfort. Alexander the Great, disciplined and relentless, carved a world from chaos, one decisive act following another, each reinforced by the habits of preparation, observation, and relentless execution. The difference is never talent alone. It is the control of the habitual self, the power to choose not what is easy, but what is strategic. And here lies the paradox. To be free, one must impose tyranny on oneself. To break the chains of habit, you must enslave the self to higher purpose, to a vision cold and unflinching. Daily repetition becomes not the prison of weakness, but the engine of transformation. Your chains are visible now. Will you break them, or continue as the unwitting servant of your own predictable mediocrity? The path is not easy. The days will burn. The mind will rebel. But once the habit of mastery replaces the habit of complacency, once every action is deliberately chosen, a new power awakens. You begin to act with purpose, not reaction. You begin to wield time, circumstance, and even people as instruments of strategy. The tyranny that once enslaved you becomes the instrument through which you conquer. Yet, this is only the beginning. Control of habit opens the door, but the next test is far more ruthless. If you believe breaking chains is enough, think again. True transformation demands you confront the hidden weaknesses that linger even after routine is mastered. And it is here, in the silent war of self-discipline, that the next lesson awaits. Do you know the battlefield on which you fight? I do not speak of armies, nor of kingdoms. I speak of yourself. Your mind, your choices, your very existence is a principality. And yet, how many men traverse it blindly, allowing circumstance to write their destiny while they linger in passivity? To change everything in 6 months, you must see yourself as a sovereign sees his state, every strength mapped, every weakness catalogued, every threat anticipated. Do you have the courage to do so? History offers a lesson in the cost of ignorance. Take the fate of Richard III. A king, yes, but one whose vision was narrow, whose self-perception was clouded by vanity and fear. He failed to see the fractures in his alliances, the ambitions festering beneath the loyalty of his followers. He fell, not to superior armies alone, but to miscalculation, the failure to observe the state he ruled, starting with the self. Do you wish to be Richard, or the strategist who learns from his demise? Your mind is the terrain. Habits, emotions, desires, fears. They are the hills and valleys that dictate movement. Do you march without reconnaissance, or do you survey every ridge and ravine? Look inward. What are your assets? Discipline, charisma, intelligence, endurance. Inventory them ruthlessly. Then examine the shadows. Procrastination, envy, impulsivity, doubt. These are not weaknesses to be wished away. They are threats to be neutralized. Would a general leave a gap in his defenses and expect victory? Certainly not. And yet, how many leave the self undefended, exposed to every assault of circumstance and internal rebellion? Consider the political genius of Frederick the Great. He ruled with iron and intellect, yet he knew his empire began within. Daily reflection, strategic planning, personal discipline. These were not mere habits, they were acts of conquest over the self. He anticipated the moves of rivals, but first he anticipated his own failings. The lesson is stark. To manipulate the world, you must manipulate yourself first. You must foresee the enemy within, even before facing the enemy outside. Ask yourself this: if you could redesign your character as an architect redesigns a fortress, what would you change? Which weaknesses would you fortify? Which strengths would you sharpen into weapons? Most falter here, for it is easier to blame fortune than to confront the cold truth of one's limitations. But fortune favors the strategist, the one who surveys the landscape, adjusts the defenses, and attacks with premeditated force. Vision is not mere dreaming. It is calculation applied to every thought, every desire, every decision. The psychology of power teaches a ruthless truth self. Awareness is leverage. When you understand your triggers, your temptations, and your tendencies, you can manipulate your own actions as deftly as any court intrigues or battlefield maneuvers. The human mind is pliable, but pliability must be mastered. One who is blind to their own motives is a puppet. One who studies them becomes the puppeteer. Can you endure such scrutiny of yourself? Will you endure the discomfort of honest reflection, the exposure of every flaw to your own gaze? Let us examine a modern example: the entrepreneurs, generals, and leaders who rise while others stagnate. They did not succeed because the world was kind. They succeeded because they treated themselves as a state under siege, constantly assessing, correcting, exploiting advantage. Each morning was an audit, each failure a lesson, each victory a confirmation of a calculated plan. And what separated them from the ordinary? The courage to confront themselves fully, and to act with strategy once insight was gained. Do you perceive the danger and simultaneously the opportunity? Strategic vision is the act of anticipating not only what may happen, but what you are capable of allowing to happen. It is the ruthless foresight to see both potential and peril, the clarity to make decisions that others fear to consider. Without it, every action is reaction, every choice a surrender. With it, you control your state, your life, your destiny. And yet, awareness alone is insufficient. To be merely conscious of weakness is to be merely human. The next step, far more merciless, is execution. The deliberate and unwavering use of this knowledge to bend circumstance and self to your will. You now see the terrain. The next keynote will teach you how to maneuver upon it, striking with precision and ensuring that in 6 months, the world itself bends toward your ambition. Time is not a river, it is a weapon. Yet most men drift upon it as though it were gentle, unthreatening, endless. They surrender to its flow, unaware that every moment wasted is a surrender of power. 6 months. Do you understand the magnitude of such an interval? Half a year, and yet it can forge empires or destroy lives, depending upon the strategy applied. Do you possess the discipline to wield it, or will you remain its slave? Consider Julius Caesar crossing the Rubicon. The act itself was decisive, yes, but it was also a masterstroke in timing. He understood the moment, calculated its significance, and struck. Those who misjudge time are crushed, those who control it dominate. The difference is not chance. It is conscious manipulation, and the principle is eternal. Time, when mastered, becomes an ally of unparalleled force. Ask yourself, how often have you begun a task with noble intention, only to find hours dissipated in triviality? Social rituals, distractions, hesitations. These are the subtle assassins of ambition. They erode power without ever raising arms. The mind that fails to regiment time invites defeat. Do you allow minutes to pass unnoticed, or do you seize each as a soldier seizes a strategic hill? Napoleon Bonaparte understood this with brutal clarity. Observe his campaigns. Each march, each order, each battle was choreographed with ruthless precision. He manipulated time, forcing armies to move faster than their adversaries, striking before the enemy could respond, converting moments into decisive advantage. In life, the principle is identical. To act without timing is to act in vain. To act with timing is to convert effort into dominion. And yet, control of time is not merely action, it is perception. You must anticipate the ebb and flow of opportunity as one anticipates the tides. The clever strategist does not wait for the world to align with desire. He bends the circumstances to fit his plan. When others squander hours, you must invest them, leveraging each day, each hour, even each minute, into measurable gain. Every decision delayed is power surrendered. Every hesitation multiplies vulnerability. Look at the psychology of it. The human mind undervalues the small increments, the quiet minutes that accumulate unnoticed. Yet these are the compounding weapons of mastery. 1 hour of deliberate practice, 1 hour of reflection, 1 hour of meticulous planning repeated daily becomes a fortress of advantage by the end of 6 months. Can you endure the discipline required, the cold, almost cruel insistence upon structure? Most cannot. Most will fail because they are seduced by the illusion of time's generosity. History is littered with examples of men undone by impatience or procrastination. Nero indulged his whims, believing there would always be tomorrow to secure legacy. He perished, leaving a name synonymous with squandered opportunity. Contrast this with the shrewd statesmen, generals, and entrepreneurs who treat each hour as a soldier in service to ambition. They exploit the smallest fractions of time to achieve results that others consider miraculous. The secret is not miraculous. It is ruthless calculation. Now, consider the paradox: time is finite, yet infinite in potential. You cannot create more of it, yet you can manipulate it to amplify your power. You can choose your actions to compound advantage. Delay strategically, strike decisively, and allow periods of observation to inform the next move. The undisciplined fritter hours, the wise convert them into leverage. Where will you stand when 6 months have passed? As master or as victim? The manipulation of time demands audacity. It demands a ruthless rejection of distraction and indulgence. It requires that you bend days to your will, that you craft schedules not as suggestions, but as laws, and that you monitor every moment as a sovereign monitors subjects. Can you endure such relentless focus? Most cannot, but those who do will find that the world bends, not to chance, but to deliberate, strategic action. Yet awareness alone is insufficient. Mastery of time is preparation for execution. It is the stage upon which ambition performs its ruthless theater. Once hours are seized, then decisions can strike with precision, influence can be wielded with effect, and the chaos of life becomes malleable clay. But this is only preparation. The next keynote, the power of ruthless focus, will teach you how to convert this carefully regimented time into results that shape not only your world, but the minds and actions of all around you. Focus is not a gift. It is a weapon sharpened through discipline, honed by necessity, and wielded without mercy. And yet, how many squander it on trifles, allowing attention to scatter like dust in the wind? Every distraction is a siege upon ambition. Every idle thought a betrayal of potential. Ask yourself, are you master of your mind, or a servant to the whims of fleeting impulse? Consider Alexander the Great. His conquests were not merely the product of superior armies, nor of chance encounters. They were the fruit of obsession. He focused relentlessly on his objective, allowing nothing, neither comfort, neither counsel, nor fear, to dilute the precision of his strategy. One city at a time, one battle at a time, one moment at a time, his vision consumed him, and in consuming him, it consumed the world. Could you emulate such relentless focus even for 6 months? Most cannot, for focus is discipline cloaked in solitude and sacrifice. The psychology is simple yet brutal. The human mind is designed to wander, to seek comfort, to chase novelty. And yet, power demands the opposite. It demands that you resist every seductive interruption, every notification, every idle conversation, every self-indulgent thought is a poison. Focus demands ruthless prioritization, choosing the indispensable over the trivial, the strategic over the sentimental, the essential over the convenient. Which path will you choose? History teaches with cold clarity. Consider the failures of generals undone not by force of arms, but by distraction, divided attention, and hesitation. Hannibal, for all his brilliance, occasionally faltered because focus wavered, because energies were divided. Contrast this with Genghis Khan, whose campaigns were executed with singular intensity, whose every maneuver reflected a mind unbroken by irrelevance. Focus is not mere concentration, it is strategy incarnate. Look inward. What consumes your attention? What whispers steal your energy while pretending to be harmless? Social trivialities, emotional indulgences, half-finished tasks, passive entertainment. These are the enemies cloaked in comfort. The mind that allows them to flourish surrenders power. The mind that ruthlessly eliminates them seizes opportunity. Every act of attention is a soldier, every act of distraction, a traitor. Which army commands your allegiance? Even in the modern world, the principle is unchanged. Entrepreneurs, innovators, and leaders succeed not merely because they possess talent, but because they focus with surgical precision. Elon Musk, for example, divides his attention only among ventures that serve a unified strategic purpose. Warren Buffett isolates himself from noise, cultivating mental clarity as his most formidable asset. Focus is leverage. Focus is control. Focus is the weapon that transforms knowledge into action and action into dominion. Do you perceive the danger? The more scattered your thoughts, the more your life is dictated by chance and circumstance. To master focus is to master influence. Over time, over self, over others. The act of focusing is an act of selection. Choosing which battles matter, which alliances serve, which actions produce results. Every refusal to succumb to distraction is a small victory. Every conscious effort to concentrate is a coup against chaos itself. But focus alone is insufficient. It must be ruthless. Half-hearted concentration is no better than distraction. It is a lie you tell yourself to justify mediocrity. True focus is relentless, merciless, and unforgiving. It is the elimination of all that is unnecessary until only the essential remains. Consider the ascetic monks, the disciplined warriors, the tireless statesmen. They understand that attention is currency, and that squandering it is the surest path to ruin. Now, ask yourself, are you prepared to apply such intensity for 6 months? To eliminate indulgence, to conquer distraction, to wield attention as a blade that carves reality to your design. Most will fail, but those who endure will find that the world bends not to circumstance, but to the will that is focused with precision. And here lies the foreshadowing. Mastery of focus prepares you for control not only over yourself, but over the world around you. Once the mind is disciplined, once attention is weaponized, influence becomes inevitable. Yet, focus alone is a tool. It must be paired with insight, with strategy, with understanding of human nature. The next keynote will reveal how psychological mastery transforms this focused power into manipulation that bends circumstance and others alike to your command. The stage is set. The moment is yours. Will you step forward, or will you falter in the comfort of distraction? Do you understand the human mind? Truly understand it? Most believe they do, yet they are blind to its intricacies, its vulnerabilities, and its hidden levers. Psychology is not philosophy, nor mere introspection. It is a weapon, a tool as potent as any sword or army, capable of bending circumstance, influencing allies, and undermining rivals before they even recognize the battle. And you, if you dare to master it, can wield it with ruthless precision. History whispers its lessons. Consider Cardinal Richelieu, whose power in France was unmatched not because of armies, but because he understood people. He manipulated perception, exploited desires, and anticipated fears. Courtiers obeyed, rivals fell, and the king himself was guided as if by invisible hands. His victories were not violent. They were psychological. Ask yourself, can you command without force, persuade without argument, and influence without notice? These are the marks of true power. Human behavior is predictable, yet malleable. Desire, fear, pride, envy, these are the tools. The moment you understand them, you hold leverage. Machiavelli once observed that men are more influenced by appearance than reality, by emotion than reason. Do you act accordingly, or do you assume truth and justice govern the world? The naive perish. The strategic manipulate. Look at the great tacticians Sun Tzu, Napoleon, even more modern strategists. They understood that the battlefield of the mind is as vital as the battlefield of armies. Soldiers march because of morale, generals deceive because of perception, citizens obey because of subtle manipulation. Influence begins in thought, and thought shapes action. Without control over psychology, yours and others, you fight blind. Now, consider the individual level. Your habits, your focus, your self-discipline. These are psychological instruments. If you master your own mind, you can bend circumstance and control reactions. Observe yourself. What fears rule you? What insecurities manipulate your choices? By confronting these and recalibrating your responses, you gain leverage over your own life. To control the self is the first step to controlling the world. But mastery extends beyond self. Observe others. Every interaction is a negotiation of perception. Flattery, silence, calculated pressure. These are weapons in the arsenal of the psychologically adept. History abounds with examples. Catherine de' Medici, subtly orchestrating alliances and betrayals. Bismarck, who understood that controlling narrative and expectation often achieved more than war itself. Each succeeded not by brute force alone, but by exploiting the minds of allies and enemies alike. Ask yourself this. How often have you acted without understanding the psychology at play? How often have you attempted persuasion without analyzing fear, desire, or pride? Every failure is a lesson in misapplied influence, every success a blueprint for future manipulation. This is the cold calculus of power. The mind is both battlefield and armory, and the victor is he who reads it, manipulates it, and acts upon it with deliberate precision. Psychology also reveals timing, motivation, and anticipation. A whispered suggestion at the wrong moment is useless. A clever observation acted upon with precision can alter the course of careers, alliances, even nations. You must learn to see beyond surface behavior, to detect the subtle currents beneath words, gestures, and decisions. Your ability to exploit these currents determines whether you command or are commanded. Consider modern application leaders, negotiators, and entrepreneurs who rise above competition. Do so because they read and influence behavior with surgical accuracy. They do not react blindly. They anticipate, manipulate, and direct the psychological terrain. Influence is never accidental. It is the deliberate orchestration of perception and response. And now, you are invited to step into this discipline. Yet, psychological mastery carries a warning. Knowledge is power only when applied. Understanding minds is futile without execution. The next keynote will reveal how deliberate transformation, applied strategy combined with psychological insight, converts preparation into unstoppable action. You now wield the tools, you now understand the battlefield, but the war is not over. How will you strike? How will you ensure that all that preparation manifests in tangible conquest? The answer awaits. Transformation is not inspiration. It is not sentiment. It is strategy executed with precision, a deliberate dismantling of weakness and the construction of strength. You have observed yourself, disciplined your habits, mastered focus, manipulated time, and wielded psychology as a weapon. Yet all of this is preparation. The true test lies in the calculated transformation of the self, the relentless act of converting potential into dominion. Ask yourself, are you ready to become the architect of your own destiny? History offers stark lessons. Consider Augustus Caesar, who rose from the chaos of Rome's civil wars not through brute force alone, but through a methodical reshaping of his identity, perception, and influence. He understood the necessity of appearing virtuous, of cultivating alliances, of consolidating power while presenting a mask of moderation. Every action was intentional, every habit directed, every image controlled. His transformation was deliberate, calculated, and absolute. Do you grasp the magnitude of such self-mastery? To transform oneself, one must first accept an uncomfortable truth. The self you inhabit today is an imperfect instrument, flawed and malleable. The weak resist this reality, clinging to comfort, to excuses, to the illusions of stability. The wise confront it. They dissect their character with surgical precision, identifying weaknesses to eradicate, strengths to weaponize, and tendencies to recalibrate. Ask yourself what lies within you that sabotages ambition. What desires, fears, or attachments must be relinquished to command your future? The psychology of transformation is subtle but merciless. It is not enough to aspire. Aspiration is passive, sentimental, and impotent. Action must follow insight, and insight must follow observation. Observe patterns, detect tendencies, measure responses, and then intervene deliberately. Replace hesitation with decisive choice. Replace indulgence with discipline. Replace randomness with strategy. The process is deliberate, painstaking, and often uncomfortable, but discomfort is the price of mastery. Consider the case of Napoleon Bonaparte. He did not become emperor through talent alone. He transformed himself into a figure who commanded loyalty, instilled fear, and projected authority. Every gesture, every decree, every strategy reinforced the perception of power. His transformation was calculated, his weaknesses concealed, his strengths magnified, his influence engineered. What prevents you from applying the same principle to your own life, to bend circumstance and perception to your will? Transformation is not instantaneous. It is measured in time, in repetition, in relentless execution. The 6 months you commit are a crucible, a battlefield upon which the old self must perish so the new self may rise. Each day, each decision, each disciplined action compounds the effect. Neglect a single aspect, and the edifice falters. Attend to every detail, and a metamorphosis occurs that is unmistakable, irreversible, and formidable. Ask yourself, are you willing to impose tyranny upon yourself to achieve freedom? Are you prepared to enforce rules upon your mind, body, and environment with the precision of a general directing troops? Transformation demands it. Weakness, indulgence, and hesitation must be eliminated with the same ruthlessness with which one would eliminate a traitor or rival. Only then does power manifest, not as a promise, but as a tangible force that shapes reality. And yet, transformation is more than individual mastery, it is influence. As you reshape yourself, others respond. The disciplined, focused, psychologically aware individual commands respect, inspires loyalty, and wields influence effortlessly. Change radiates outward, affecting perception, interaction, and circumstance. Power is not merely possessed, it is projected. And projection is as intentional as creation. The final truth: transformation without calculation is folly. Effort without strategy produces fatigue, not dominion. Repetition without insight produces habit, not mastery. Your ambition must be paired with precision, your actions with foresight, your psychology with ruthless observation. The 6 months are finite, the opportunity is fleeting. Will you rise with calculated ferocity, or will the inertia of the past continue to dictate your fate? And now, as this series reaches its culmination, the question remains: can you seize the self you have prepared, focus the time you have mastered, wield the psychology you have understood, and execute transformation with unflinching precision? The answer will define not just 6 months, but the course of your life. The battlefield of the self is prepared. The moment of action is imminent. Will you command it? Or will you be commanded by the very weaknesses you have observed? Power rarely exists in isolation. It thrives in networks, in influence, in the subtle manipulation of social currents. To ignore the forces that swirl around you is to surrender the battlefield before even drawing your sword. Look closely at human interaction. Each smile, each nod, each slight gesture carries weight. To command social dynamics is to control not just perception, but action itself. Ask yourself, are you a participant or the unseen strategist directing the game? History is a mirror of those who mastered this art. Consider Cardinal Richelieu once more, not merely a statesman but a conductor of people. He understood that men are driven by fear, ambition, desire, and envy. By observing these currents, he orchestrated alliances, preempted betrayal, and manipulated perception. Power flowed through him like a river, silent but unstoppable. Could you learn to navigate, to redirect, to exploit such currents in your own life? Observe the psychology. Humans are predictably irrational. They obey authority when subtle cues suggest superiority. They conform when consensus appears overwhelming. They overvalue immediate gratification while underestimating long-term consequences. These tendencies are not flaws. They are instruments. To manipulate social dynamics, you must first understand these tendencies. Then, like a skilled general, you deploy them with precision, turning instinct and emotion into leverage. Consider Elizabeth I of England. She ruled not merely through decree, but through perception. She cultivated loyalty, inspired fear, and manipulated ambition with a careful dance of appearances and subtle signals. Courtiers vied for favor, rivals hesitated, enemies miscalculated, all because she understood that influence is often stronger than force. Her mastery of social currents allowed her to survive and dominate in a male-dominated world. Could you wield influence with similar foresight? But beware the subtle traps people sense manipulation if it is crude or clumsy. Subtlety is key. Influence is most effective when the target believes they act freely, when their choices appear autonomous. The shrewd strategist nudges perception, frames decisions, and leverages expectation. Every conversation, every alliance, every interaction becomes a chessboard. Will you see the moves, or remain a piece to be moved by others? The modern world offers no shortage of examples. Corporate leaders, politicians, and influencers understand this intuitively. They craft personas, engineer narratives, and manipulate public perception. Those who fail do so because they underestimate the invisible forces of social expectation. Those who succeed do so because they bend these forces to their purpose, guiding others' behavior while appearing compliant themselves. Influence is camouflage, subtle, deliberate, and lethal. Ask yourself in your daily interactions, how often do you act reactively, allowing others' agendas to dominate? How often do you fail to recognize opportunities to shape perception, to redirect ambition, to influence outcomes? The gap between ordinary and extraordinary lies in your ability to read the currents before you act. Those who navigate wisely command loyalty, those who stumble follow. The psychology of manipulation is intricate, yet mercilessly logical. Humans seek validation, crave status, and fear isolation. Exploit these tendencies, and you wield silent authority. Praise strategically. Withdraw attention selectively. Deploy trust and suspicion as instruments. Like Bismarck orchestrating alliances across Europe, you can engineer outcomes without firing a single shot. The battlefield is social, and victory is influence. Yet social mastery is never passive. Observation without intervention achieves nothing. Influence without timing fails. Your advantage is measured not by understanding alone, but by execution, the deliberate application of insight to bend behavior and expectation. 6 months of disciplined social strategy can secure networks, loyalty, and authority that will endure far longer than fleeting effort or talent. And now, as you stand at the threshold of social conquest, consider this: mastery of social dynamics is the bridge between personal transformation and external power. You have disciplined habits, honed focus, mastered time, wielded psychology. Now these combine with social influence to produce exponential effect. The next step is the integration of all these forces into deliberate, unstoppable strategy. The stage is set. The pieces are in motion. Will you orchestrate the outcome, or be swept aside by currents you failed to see? Knowledge without action is vanity. Preparation without execution is futility. You have disciplined habits, mastered focus, manipulated time, wielded psychology, transformed yourself, and navigated social currents. Yet all of this remains theoretical until it is executed. Execution is the final crucible, the battlefield where strategy is tested and dominance is forged. Ask yourself, are you content with preparation, or will you act with ruthless precision to shape reality itself? History provides unambiguous lessons. Alexander the Great possessed brilliant strategy, but his genius lay in execution. The plans conceived in quiet reflection became unstoppable campaigns across continents because he acted decisively, relentlessly, without hesitation. Contrast this with generals who procrastinated, deliberated endlessly, or hesitated at the critical moment. Their knowledge of tactics counted for nothing when the moment of action passed. Will you act when the moment arrives, or falter like the cautious and mediocre? Execution demands clarity of purpose. Every decision, every movement, every statement must serve the ultimate objective. Fortune favors the deliberate, not the hesitant. Julius Caesar crossed the Rubicon because he understood that indecision is death, that delay invites disaster. Action, once carefully calculated and informed by strategy, is unstoppable. But uncalculated action is chaos. Which will you choose, calculated conquest or chaotic struggle? The psychology of execution is equally ruthless. Fear, doubt, and hesitation are the greatest enemies. They masquerade as caution, as prudence, as reason. Yet they are the chains that bind ambition. To execute strategically, you must neutralize internal resistance. Observe your own hesitation. What excuses do you fabricate? Which rationalizations betray your purpose? Confront them, subvert them, and replace them with the disciplined insistence of action. The battlefield within is the first to be conquered. History demonstrates the cost of failure to execute. Consider the conspirators against Caesar. They planned, deliberated, debated, and in the end, their indecision allowed the world to shift around them. Execution requires decisiveness, precision, and timing. When the moment demands it, hesitation is fatal. The strategist must act as the predator does, swiftly, deliberately, and without doubt. Execution is also leverage. The disciplined, prepared mind, when coupled with decisive action, commands influence far beyond its size. Napoleon understood this principle. His preparation was meticulous, his intelligence unmatched, yet it was decisive execution that converted strategy into empire. Timing, force, and psychological insight combined to produce outcomes that seemed miraculous, but were in fact inevitable. Do you see the pattern? Mastery without execution is impotent, execution without mastery is reckless. Both must converge. The modern application is clear. Entrepreneurs, leaders, and innovators fail not from lack of vision, but from failure to act decisively when opportunity appears. The moment is fleeting, hesitation invites rivals, mistakes, and irrelevance. To execute strategically is to convert preparation into irreversible advantage. Every plan, every skill, every insight becomes weaponized through deliberate action. Ask yourself, are you willing to act with such ruthlessness? To harness every disciplined habit, every psychological insight, every social leverage, and apply it without mercy toward your objective. Execution is relentless, unforgiving, and absolute. It rewards no hesitation and tolerates no weakness. The difference between success and mediocrity is measured in moments seized, decisions enforced, and opportunities exploited with precision. And now, as you stand on the threshold of mastery, understand this: all prior keynotes converge in execution. Habits, focus, time, psychology, transformation, social dynamics, they are instruments. Execution is the force that converts instruments into empire. You have prepared, you have observed, you have shaped yourself and others. The final test is action. Will you seize the moment and bend the world to your will, or will preparation remain impotent, dreams unrealized, potential unfulfilled? The battlefield awaits. The time to strike is now. Power is rarely earned. It is seized. Often, the most potent control is invisible, subtle, silent, and unrecognized. Do you command openly, or do you manipulate from the shadows? Do you bend wills with force, or with perception, desire, and fear? The difference defines kings and pawns. Human nature is predictable, pliable, exploitable. Pride, envy, ambition, fear, they are levers. The one who knows them and acts without hesitation moves unseen while others stumble in the light. Influence without detection is the apex of mastery. Have you dared to observe yourself first, to understand your own weaknesses before exploiting the weaknesses of others? The battlefield of control is subtle. Words, gestures, timing, perception, they are weapons sharper than any blade. Those who master them command loyalty, obedience, and outcomes, all while leaving their subjects blind to the manipulation. Now, the question is yours: will you remain ordinary, visible and weak, or will you step into the shadows and act with deliberate strategy? Comment your thoughts. Share your observations. Subscribe to uncover more strategies for invisible power, and share this knowledge. True mastery spreads only to those bold enough to claim it.